Hello everyone, this is Dylan with D Squared Games, and I'm here to talk to you about this new game that we just got a prototype version of that will be coming to Kickstarter, planned to be coming to Kickstarter in February. And you can look up the Board Game Geek website page for this now, but you should be able to back it on Kickstarter hopefully in February. So keep in mind that everything in this video is prototype. This is not necessarily what the final game will look like, but this will give you a good idea of what the game will look like when it comes to Kickstarter in February. So this is Age of Civilization. This is a pocket-sized civilization building game. And by pocket-sized, I mean this box is about the size of one of the Tiny Epic games by Gamelin Games. So Tiny Epic Quest, Tiny Epic Galaxies. The newest one is Tiny Epic Zombies. Tiny Epic Mechs was recently kickstarted. Anyway, this is about that size. And so you'll recognize the box size from those types of games. And it's also pocket-sized in that it's a civilization building game that's only going to take 30 minutes to play. This plays 1 to 4 players, and you can finish the game in about 30 minutes. So yeah, I'll just give you a brief overview of what the turn structure is like in the game, what you're going to be doing on your turn, and how the overall game works. And then I'll talk a little bit more in detail in another video. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started here. So this is the game. You can see that it is mostly cards here. The primary cards that you should be concerned with right away at the beginning are these civilization cards. And there are about 35 of these cards, and each one is unique. It's a different civilization with different abilities, and has its own unique little symbol up here in the corner and all kinds of stuff like that. So this is going to be the very first thing you do on your turn, is selecting your first civilization. So rather than this game being a civilization building game where you're building up one civilization from the ground up, essentially what this is you're using the abilities of already established civilizations and kind of building a legacy of civilizations rather than one single civilization. So for example, if I were to select this civilization, the Mayans, as my first civilization, the first thing I would do is look at how many workers are on the side here, how many meeples are shown on the side of the card here. In the case of the Mayans, that's 3. So if I select the Mayans as my first civilization, I will take this card and I will take 3 meeples from the supply. So the meeples that come with the game, each person has 4. That's the max that any civilization is going to give you, is 4. So you don't just start with these, it depends on which civilization you select. So if I'm selecting the Mayans, then I will select 3 of these workers, and those are the workers that I'll have available to complete actions while the Mayans are my primary civilization. After you've selected your primary civilization, your first one, all of the civilizations that are left available for others to choose from will get coins on them. The prototype version of the game that we have came with these orange wooden tokens as the coins. I have the Charterstone metal coins, and I like to use those when I get the chance, so I'll be using those in this video. So all of these other civilizations that were not chosen will get a coin on them. So anyone that will choose these civilizations in the future will get that coin when they take that civilization, and then you get a new civilization put into the offer. And the coins are going to be what you use to pay for some of the actions that you're going to complete during the game. After you've done that and you have your workers, you'll be able to select the actions that you're going to be doing on your turn. In every round, there are only going to be 6 actions that are available to you at any time. These 3 actions that are on this card here are always available throughout the entire game. So the Wonder, Research, and Enslave actions are always available throughout the entire game on this larger action card. And at the beginning of the game, that will start here. Then there are also 8 other actions that you randomly set out along the bottom of the table here, and place the permanent action card, this bigger one, above those. So At the beginning of the game during the first round, there are 6 actions that are available to you, and those actions are the three actions on this permanent card, plus the 3 actions that are directly below that on the table. So the 6 actions that are available to you in the first round are going to be different every time you play the game. And overall, the order in which the actions become available is going to be different every time you play the game as well. So during the first round, you'll have these 6 actions available to you. The way these actions work is you place workers on them. And so, for example, the research action you could take twice if you had enough money. So you would place 1 worker, pay the cost if necessary, so $4 in the case of research, and then complete the action, which is getting 1 point. The stars are the symbols for points, and then increasing one of your technologies. And there's a technology tree, which we'll talk about in a second. If the action has a white meeple next to it, that means that you'll get that meeple back at the end of your turn. If it's red, that means that you'll lose that meeple at the end of your turn, and we'll talk about why that's important here in a second. So these are the 3 permanent actions, but all the actions work the same way. So you'll place a meeple, pay its cost if it has one, and then at the end of your turn, if it's white, you'll get that meeple back. If it's red, you'll lose it at the end of your turn. And like I said, the actions that are available to you during the first round are these 3 on the top on this permanent card, and then the 3 below it. After the first round, after every single player has had a turn, this permanent card slides 1 space to the right. And so what happens then is this furthest left action that was available is now no longer available for the rest of the game. A new action is available now. The trade action is available now, in addition to the 3 permanent actions and the 2 actions that were available previously. When the card slides over, that is representing time progressing as you're building up your civilizations. And so this row of actions down here is called the timeline, and it represents new actions becoming available over time. When you slide this card over, it gets rid of an action and adds in a new action, but it also can trigger some in-between round effects. So this trade action was the new one that became available, and when a card has this little sword symbol up here, when the timeline reaches that card, that causes conquest to occur, and so you basically have war between your different players, and one person is going to lose a meeple. And I'll talk more about how that works a little bit later. So on your turn, after the time card has slid over and revealed new actions, and you've resolved any of those effects, then you'll take your turn as normal. You'll be placing workers on these slots to take actions, get points, all of that. Every round after the first round, you have the option of selecting a new civilization. So for example, at the beginning of the game, I selected the Mayans to be my civilization for the first round. That meant I had this primary ability here and this secondary ability here. In a different round, so say in the second round, if I wanted to, I could choose a new civilization card. So before my turn, I would choose a new civilization card. Say I chose this India card. Then the choice you have to make is whether you're going to rise this new civilization. So essentially what that means is you're going to get the new primary ability here, or if you're going to annex this civilization, which means you're not going to get this new primary ability here. So if you rise the new civilization, you're going to cover the primary ability of your former civilization, which gives you the new primary ability here, but you get to keep the legacy, the secondary ability of both civilizations. If you annex your new civilization, you're going to do the opposite. So you're going to keep your original civilization ability and add in a new secondary ability. So either way, you're adding in that new secondary ability. The choice is whether you want to get rid of your old primary ability or not. The reason you'd want to get rid of your old primary ability and get a new primary ability isn't necessarily just because if this primary ability is better. It could also be because of your workers. So throughout your actions, you're going to be taking actions that will cause you to lose workers. Those red spaces cause you to lose workers. You're also going to be having conquest. You're going to be having war between the players, and if that causes you to lose workers, you'll lose your workers. So there's lots of ways you can lose your workers, and the only way to get those back is when you rise a new civilization, putting it on top of your previous one. If you have less than the number of workers that are shown on the side there, you get to bring that total back up to the proper number of workers. So this is a really important thing throughout the game to remember, that when you rise a new civilization, you get your workers back. However, you can only have 3 civilization cards total in front of you throughout the game. So once you have annexed or risen a total of 3 civilization cards, then you can no longer take civilization cards for the rest of the game. So if in the 4th round you take a new civilization card, and that's your 3rd one, and all of your workers somehow get killed, or you use a lot of them, and so you don't have very many left, that means you're stuck with that small number of workers for the last 2 rounds. So planning that out is a really important part of the game. Kind of the goal of your game is to score the most points, and one of the big ways to score a lot of points is by building wonders. And the build wonder action is one of the actions that's permanent, that's available for the entire game, rather than being an action that will go away. So wonders, there are 10 wonders in the game, and each one is going to give you some kind of a passive ability, where you get extra points for doing certain actions, or it's going to be end of game points, or it's going to be instant points based on how many of a certain thing you have. So for example, the Hanging Gardens gives you extra points when you take the culture action. The Colosseum gives you points at the end of the game for how many shields you have, and so on and so forth, and there are 10 of those. Like I said earlier, there is also a technology tree in the game, and each player will get one of these sheets here, and taking the research action will allow you to unlock these technologies. So when you unlock your first technology, the only ones that you have available to unlock are the ones that are on the bottom here. So that is writing, sailing, and mining, and those are available to you at the beginning of the game. So when you take the research action, you will select one of those 3, and then that will begin to unlock this branching system of technology. And essentially what the technology tree will allow you to do is make certain actions better. It will give you more benefits for certain actions, or it will make certain actions cheaper. It'll make certain actions cost less, or it will give you shields, which you'll need when you do conquest, and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire game. There's a little bit more I would like to talk about in a more detailed video, but just some overall thoughts. We really, really like this sliding action mechanism, where as this slides across the table, it represents time. It's really tactile and thematic, having this slide across the table and having that simulate time passing, and having that show which actions are available to you at any time, and having certain actions only available for a certain amount of time and then going away. That's really cool. The technology tree, in our games, we haven't used it much, but that's just because we're not very good at the game yet. But as we get better, I think this will become a lot more important part of our games. Those are really cool. I really, really like these civilization cards. Each one is unique, and each one, their abilities are tied directly to their civilization. So for example, the Viking civilization card is really good at trading. So they can trade, and they force other players to not trade. And they also have shields, so they force other players to not trade because they have control of the seas. And then they also have a free fish action that they can do at any time throughout the game. And fish is one of the actions along the bottom that won't necessarily be always available. but they always have that being available. So it's just really cool how each one of these individual civilization cards is unique, and each one's unique ability makes sense for its civilization. I also really like the fact that the game is really tight. It's really short. There's a little bit of player interaction, but there's not a ton of really mean player interaction. There's a couple cards that will take some coins from the other players. But for the most part, it's really just about building your own civilization and not tearing down other people's. I really like that the game forces you to do as much as possible with not very many workers, and it is really tight and makes you plan out your turns in advance, and makes it so that you can't just do everything that you want to do. You have to actually make meaningful decisions. And I really like also that in this timeline of actions, you can see exactly what's coming. You know exactly which actions are coming. You can plan for them, but you don't have to. So it really narrows down the decision space for you. You only have 6 actions to choose from at any one time, even though there are a total of 10 actions in the game. And so you can plan, but you don't have to. So it is really good for just making really meaningful decisions, but without having to take a long time to make those meaningful decisions. I really like that. As far as things that aren't necessarily our favorite, we do wish that the coins were a little bit more thematic, even if they were just cardboard tokens. That would be a little bit better. And this is a prototype, so these might be better after the Kickstarter, so these coins aren't best. They're just these orange wooden tokens. That would be nice. The score track when we first used it was a little confusing, just because of the way they have it set up. So you can see it goes 0, 1, and then you have to come back down to 2, 3, 4. We were expecting to go 0, 1, 2, and so we got confused on our score a couple times. But I mean, that's a simple fix, or it's not even really necessary to fix it. It just took us a second to figure that out. And yeah, I mean, there's really not a whole lot negative that I have to say about this game. It's really, really well done. It's a really tight game. Even for prototype, a lot of these cards have really nice illustrations on them. Like all of the wonder cards have these really nice sketches of the wonders on them. So yeah, there's really not a whole lot that I can complain about with this game. Just a couple things that are probably mainly because of it being a prototype, like some of the components. But yeah, it's a really, really cool game. So just make sure that you check it out on Kickstarter when it comes to Kickstarter. And the plan for that is to be around February. And yeah, if you're interested in a little bit more detailed information about the game, I'm going to make another video, show a couple of rounds of playthrough. And you can find that if you click on the eye in the corner of the screen there, and I will link to that. All right, thanks guys.